Hello, Mark Wilson here again from Florida's Chamber of Commerce. You're watching this short video because you care about Florida's future, or perhaps a Chamber board member asked you to, or maybe both. Either way, our world is changing in big and important ways, and Florida has a chance to lead, or in fact get left behind. Our Florida 2030 blueprint for Florida's future is our latest in our well-known Cornerstone research series, and it includes our entire enterprise, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, the Florida Chamber Foundation, and of course, our family of political action operations. It's Florida's economic development framework, and it's all about securing Florida's future. As we work to turn your $2 million and 3-year investment in the Florida 2030 initiative into action and results, we're taking responsibility for the right policies and the right strategies, and of course, the right outcomes. If Florida is going to show the world how to get it done right, then it all starts right here, and it starts right now. Look, the key here is our collective vision. We will continue leading Florida to a new and sustainable economy. We'll be globally competitive. We'll have pathways for prosperity for everyone, and we'll have some of the highest paying job opportunities in the hemisphere. And our communities will be vibrant and, of course, resilient. So, first thing we need to understand is that nothing is as it seems. Everything is changing. Our economics, our demographics, and of course, our politics. So, if everything is changing, then we must lead differently in the future than we did in the past. For starters, the Florida Blueprint for Florida's Future is the latest in our 50-year legacy of leading Florida. Our foundation research has literally changed the course of Florida's economy, as well as education outcomes, and we've done this for decades. From recommending the creation of Enterprise Florida to our No More Excuses report on K-12 education, our trade and logistics reports, our report on the future of work, and even our report on the fiscal cliff, which shows that incredibly, a single mom or dad with 2 small children in poverty is actually better off in Florida making $18,000 a year with entitlements than she or he would be making $49,000 a year without them. So again, our reports, they have and they will continue to drive meaningful change for Florida's future. So as we completed our research phase and began moving into the rollouts and results phase, it's important we think about where we are and where we need to be. As I go through this presentation, I'll attempt to give you some context as well. By 2030, for example, we'll add 5 million more residents and 50 million more annual visitors. And of course, this has implications on everything from water policy to job skills. In terms of economic development, Florida is already a $1 trillion economy, and that ranks us 17th in the world. Our goal is to hit number 10 by 2030. Let's look at Florida's growth. We're growing by over 1,000 people a day, and that's at a time when California and New York are losing population. Take a look at what's driving our growth. We have more people moving to Florida from another state than any other state in America. We have more people moving to Florida from other countries than Texas does. And of course, that helps drive our diversity. By 2030, we'll have 2.4 million more seniors than we do today, yet 75% of our population will still be under 65. So as we researched trends and indicators, we found there are 8 major drivers, or you might call them influencers, impacting everything we think about over the next decade, especially when you think about how Florida will live and you think about how Florida will work. So there may be 8 drivers, but the one constant is change. Literally everything is being disrupted. Think about innovation, think about automation, think about artificial intelligence and sensors. Think about big data, predictive technology, the gig economy. This is all disrupting and transforming work. And think about global markets. Much of the world's growth will be outside the U.S. After hearing from over 10,000 people in all 67 counties over the last 3 years, and by the way, we did this in 83 town hall meetings, the bottom line is Floridians are optimistic and they're pessimistic. On the optimistic side, 87% of the 10,000 people that we met with, 87% said that they're optimistic about Florida's future. But on the other hand, more than half of them said that their local communities were not prepared to compete. They're not ready for prosperity. They're not vibrant, and they're certainly not sustainable. When you net it all out, perceptions matter. So each community had a different perception, so to speak, but arts, culture, health, wellness, these are all perceived to be strengths for Florida, and they're perceived to be getting better. And of course, on the other hand, responsiveness of government and affordable housing are perceived to be weaknesses in Florida, and they're perceived to be getting worse. As the Florida Chamber Enterprise leads the Florida 2030 initiative, the Chamber's strategic plan is focused on advancing the goals in Florida 2030. Our foundation research team will stay focused on key targets and policy solutions, and of course, in uniting the business leaders to secure Florida's future. Our chamber advocacy and lobbying team, our grassroots team, we'll continue fighting for the right decisions in Tallahassee and in Washington. Look, not everyone agrees with free enterprise, but I promise you the fight will continue. And obviously, our nonpartisan political action network, we will continue recruiting and electing Democrats and Republicans and independents who support Florida's business agenda. To help us unite Florida's business leaders and focus our elected officials, and of course, align the limited resources in the business community and measure what actually matters, Florida's next strategic plan is again being based on the 6 pillar framework, and it will be measured statewide as well as in each of the 67 counties at the floridascorecard.org. The first and arguably most important pillar is talent. And compared to other states, Florida is actually setting the example. But compared to other nations, America is actually falling behind. So we've taken a cradle to career approach here, and we're focused on turning earners into learners. In Florida, we typically have around 250,000 jobs that are looking for people, and we usually have around 350,000 people looking for jobs. And creating a talent supply chain that makes Florida more competitive and creates upward mobility, that's the goal. Let's take a look at what the research says. Keep in mind that 57% of our third graders can read at or above grade level. And at the same time, with 5 million more residents by 2030, we need to create 1.7 million net new jobs by then. So there are 6 key talent goals for 2030, and there are obviously dozens of tactics, but the 6 key goals are right here on the right side. The second pillar is the intersection of innovation and economic development. This is about creating good jobs and diversifying our economy even further, whether it's moving more goods through Florida, increasing our research and development investments, or increasing our share of global venture cap market. Florida needs to keep innovating and keep diversifying. As Florida became a $1 trillion economy in 2018, um, there's something most people don't know, even so-called experts don't know, and that is that Florida is one of America's more economically diverse states. We're actually 20th. We're the 20th most diversified state in America, and we generally keep improving. This is important because it not only helps Florida during economic downturns, but it also creates economic opportunity for our citizens. While we keep diversifying, our Florida 20 research tells us that there are 9 key goals we need to achieve here. So in terms of innovation and economic development, we need to do the 9 areas that you see below. We can't really unite around solutions for 2030 unless we focus also on smarter growth and smarter infrastructure solutions. When it comes to energy, water, transportation, communications, think of risk management and more, we have to be smart about our investments as well as obviously state and regional policy. The truth is, smart infrastructure is economic development. While growth will be more urban than rural, it's important that we plan from the future, from what we know. For example, our research tells us that approximately 57% of all of our population growth to 2030 will happen in just these 8 counties. 57%. When we think about preparing Florida's infrastructure for smart growth and development, here are the 7 goals that our research tells us we need to achieve. As our researchers investigated what makes a business climate more competitive, we looked at our tax climate, we looked at our lawsuit abuse crisis, which, by the way, the Wall Street Journal keeps talking about. We looked at our regulatory system and just about everything else that site selectors and company leaders look at before taking risks and making investments. As we look to build the world's perfect business climate, our researchers found these 6 keys to success. When we think about making government more efficient and our civics engagement more aligned and effective, we looked at everything from the structure of government to the courts to funding to alignment. If you believe that Florida should be run like a business, ask yourself if our state's governance is efficient and if it's focused on outcomes. On the civic side, think about it this way. We have over 1,000 trade associations, all pushing disconnected agendas, yet we rank 50th in America in volunteerism. We can do better than that. We need to do better than that. On the governance side, in addition to having 34 state agencies in Tallahassee, consider we have 67 counties, 412 cities, we have 95 school districts, over 1,000 special taxing districts, and I could go on and on, but you get the point. We need a more aligned governance structure in Florida, and we need more engaged volunteers to unite behind the 6-pillar strategy and the Florida 2030 recommendations. Finally, when we look at the 6th pillar, which is all about Florida's quality of life, we're looking at everything from healthcare outcomes to livability of communities to the safety and security of neighborhoods. In other words, it's a look at why we choose to live here now and into the future. Quality of life is hard to measure, but we know that it's vital for Florida's future. In terms of our relative rank in this category, Florida ranks in the top 25% of all states for overall well-being. We're number 1 for social well-being, and we're number 4 for sense of purpose. However, as business leaders, we have to be willing to also confront the brutal reality of certain facts that simply need to be confronted. While we rank high in some areas, we still have almost 70,000 of our children in our schools who are homeless. These all work together, and I'm so proud of the Chamber Board and the Foundation trustees for taking these important issues head on. By 2030, our research highlights that there are 6 areas we need to get right, and you can see them on the screen now. As the Florida Chamber unites Florida's business leaders to focus on creating the future, our Florida 2030 blueprint for Florida's future will serve as Florida's next strategic plan. I'd like to thank the hundreds of volunteers, from CEOs of multinational companies to entrepreneurs who are starting their first venture, from trade associations who invested hours with us, and to all the local chambers who hosted us, who pushed us, and who worked with us, and to the more than 10,000 Floridians who gave us their input in 83 different town halls in all 67 counties. We say a great big thank you. And to my teammates on staff here at the Florida Chamber, you're second to none, and I'm confident, and I know you are, that the collective action of Florida's leaders will in fact help us to secure Florida's future. The bottom line is this. As I wrap up my overview, let me end where I began. It won't be politicians or a single policy idea that will make Florida thrive. Everything about Florida is changing: our economics, our politics, and our demographics. What isn't changing is the fact that when business leaders put their resources together, when they put the long term ahead of the short term, when they stop funding associated interest groups that splinter Florida rather than make us more competitive, it's then that Florida wins. The team and I appreciate your confidence in our work, and we're looking forward to working with you as we all work to secure Florida's future. Thank you.